Freddy Fazbear has done many things, from horror to RPGs to now even kart racers for some reason. The bear just cannot be stopped. Despite this, though, there will always be one thing that holds true. Nobody will ever understand everything this bear has to tell us. We can study the deeper recesses of this franchise. I mean, hell, real talk, we were counting toes for years. And despite all of that, there will still always be unanswered questions. Today, though, I can answer one of those questions. The most important one, potentially. No, not that one. Can Freddy Fazbear beat LeBron James on the court, of course? Well, why don't we figure that out as we see if Freddy Fazbear would dominate the NBA? Now, as far as I'm aware, there's a couple important stats that can help us find the position Freddy would play in, those being his height, weight, and speed. Now, I know there's more to it than that, but we're covering core stats. Shooting and ball handling are things you only really gain from experience, and it doesn't sound fun to just go, well, Freddy can't dribble because he's never played before. Well, now that you know what we're looking for, why don't we start by finding Freddy's height? You would think finding the height of these characters is difficult, but I'm confident in saying Freddy could get a date from height alone. We can use what I like to call the door method, patent pending. What this means is we can take Chica and compare her to the office window / door. The window is just as tall as the door, I believe. The perspective just makes it look funky. Common doors are about 6 foot 8 inches tall. Now, the office door isn't necessarily the common door, but it's a safe measurement to use here. When Chica's at the window, she appears to be a couple inches shorter. 1 or 2 if I had to guess, as it seems like she's not standing completely upright. To solidify my place as a nerd, I feel it's reasonable to assume that Chica and Freddy are similar heights at the top of their head. Freddy may be taller, but we can safely put him at about 6 foot 6, I believe. Now for perspective, this is 3 inches shorter than LeBron, but likely still much taller than anyone's quote-unquote height on their Tinder profile. Speed similarly seems tricky at first, and this is where I want to preface that I'm not factoring in much book info. I just haven't read all the stories. However, we won't need the books to clock Freddy at an insane potential top speed. We can get this top speed from everyone's favorite, Foxy. His hallway sprint was actually calced in the past by some poor soul who goes by Psychic Fredbear Golden Dude on the FNAF wiki of all places. Now the reason I say poor soul is because the work it must have taken to find this could not have been fun in the slightest. However, it did not stop this trooper from clocking Foxy at 27.27 miles per hour. First, I want to guess at least someone's thoughts right now. But, that's Foxy's speed, not Freddy's. To that, I'll bring up probable comparability, is what I'll call it. There's more reason to believe all of these characters are built similarly, meaning they all have similar feats. They're probably comparable. Now, Freddy might not run in the games, but that doesn't mean he can't run at all. And if he could run, he'd likely match Foxy, as they should be built similarly. What I'm really trying to say here is that not only could Freddy match Foxy, he's only faster than Usain Bolt by a measly 4 full miles per hour. It's really not that much. I should also note that Foxy seemingly has instant acceleration. It's reasonable to assume Freddy would as well. Weight is where I hit a wall, actually. There's not a lot of information to help us find how much these characters weigh. The most we've ever gotten are the sister location blueprints, I believe, and those don't seem to be of much use here. Well, I say that, but we could use it to potentially guess a weight for Freddy. I mean, we know Freddy looks ready to hibernate first off, and we know Funtime Freddy was 350 pounds while being 6 inches shorter than Freddy. That's likely because he's pretty filled out internally with the wire-based endoskeleton, and other gizmos and gadgets, which Freddy just doesn't have. However, I'm willing to say Freddy is similar to that 350 pound range for simply just being taller. Now that's because his endo is going to be taller and weigh more, as well as his shell and fur-based material adding a good bit of weight on top, as I believe those things can actually get pretty heavy when combined. Unfortunately, this isn't exact, but I did manage to find people who agree with me on what is probably the most reputable source ever, the Steam forums. And let's be honest, when have the Steam forums ever been wrong? They're probably the most trustworthy source out there. Let me break this all down for you real quick. Freddy Fazbear is Mr. Steelio Girl at 6 foot 6 inches, or 1.98 meters tall. He has infinite energy, like the androids from Dragon Ball, while also being the fastest running humanoid the world would have ever seen. And to top it all off, as if that wasn't enough, his weight is actually pretty similar to a literal piano, and that includes a weight range I could give him from like 320 pounds as a low ball to 380 pounds as a high ball. And now that we have all those stats, let's take a look at what position Freddy would play and how will he do in that position. Now would be about the time when I have my good pal F4 come in and discuss Freddy on the court, but sadly he can't be here with us today. Fortunately though, I created this robot that looks exactly like him named F5 to just repeat what he said last time. Nothing bad can come of that, surely. Oh, and to F4, who, if you're watching, I'm coming after you.
Hey, let's go over the basics real quick about our boy Freddy. So as of now, we know that our boy Freddy, he's 320 to 370 pounds, 6'5 to 6'7, gosh, with a top speed of 27 miles per hour. Well, 27.27 if you want to be a smart ass. So now we know our boy Freddy, he's built, he's strong, he's fast. So what position would he do well in? Well, from my research, with a height range similar to players like Kawhi Leonard, Jimmy Butler, and Kevin Durant, he fits pretty well into the position of a small forward. In this position, he could do whatever the hell he wants. He owns the court at this point. He can get rebounds, assists, he can shoot, he can defend, he can take your bit. With the stats this man has, there is no fighting Freddy. There is no beating Freddy. There's no winning against Freddy.
Freddy Fazbear would go crazy on the court. He's not like the tallest character around, and he may not be the greatest player of all time, but he'd be really hard to stop thanks to his weight and his raw speed. However, what if I told you there was another Freddy that would own the court? Withered Freddy looks a bit old. I mean, the timeline could contradict that. I'll never be able to understand that shit anyways, but the point is that he looks bad. However, it doesn't really matter. And to show you just how little it matters, I want to draw your attention to Withered Freddy's height. The difference between our Freddys is like the difference between 5'11 and 6 foot. 5'11 seems tall, and then you see 6 foot. 6'6" is by no means a bad height for classic Freddy, but Withered Freddy here is eligible for free Slurpees, because he stands at 7'11". That height excludes his hat, by the way. And as for where I found this, it was Reddit. We all knew Reddit was going to show up at some point. I mean, be real. However, what you might not have known is that this was found by Kane Carter, the creator of Pop Goes. He found Withered Freddy's height to be about 8'3" with the top hat. So I found the average height of a top hat at about 5.5 inches, and boom. Now we know Freddy's 7'11", as well as being the tallest basketball player to ever step foot in the NBA. Unfortunately, FNAF 2 doesn't really display speed very well. In fact, there isn't much of a speed at all for any of the characters in FNAF 2. However, we can look to FNAF Help Wanted instead. The Withereds were introduced to the game in the Curse of Dreadbear DLC. I guess just like most FNAF merchandise, they weren't cool enough to be in it from the beginning. The reason this matters though is that Withered Foxy runs around in the Trick or Treat minigame where all the Withered characters are in a mansion and you have to guess which will answer the door. Yeah, this game is weird. Foxy can be seen going pretty fast though, and based on the sound he makes, he runs at the same speed as FNAF 1 Foxy in the game. Now, this is definitely proof of their speeds being the same, and it's not at all Steelwool, the creators of the game, using the same sound effect for both characters. Now that we have Withered Foxy's speed, we can use probable comparability once again, as these characters are the same generation of model, meaning they can likely achieve the same speed. And now that means we got two Freddys that can break world record paces, and as if that wasn't enough, things are only going to get worse for the sport of basketball going forward. Weight was strange for this bear. I found more people talking about Toy Chica's weight than literally any other character, and it only really left me with one simple question. Do you think those guys go outside at all? Like, can we talk about it? I will say I did see people on the FNAF wiki put Withered Freddy at about 410 pounds. He definitely weighed much more than Classic Freddy, so I think this is pretty reasonable. His low ball can be 380 pounds, and his high ball can be 440 pounds. Given the low ball weight, Withered Freddy would still be the heaviest recorded player to ever play in the NBA, according to my sources. And even if he's not, 380 pounds on a 7'11" frame is terrifying. In short, Withered Freddy is a monster, and those who oppose him should probably pray. He makes his team look like the dwarves from Snow White. It would be almost impossible to guard him due to how much higher he can reach than pretty much everyone in the sport right now. And if that wasn't enough, he can run you down like it's an average Tuesday. Now that we have these stats, we can look at what position Freddy might play. But I'm just going to tell you something real quick, it does not matter. So let me just wheel F5 back in here real quick, and he'll take care of it.
Now we got the top dog, the OG. Or well, I mean, at least in the timeline that I saw, he was the OG. I don't know, man. Whatever. My boy Withered Freddy, he's chilling at a nice 350 to 400 pounds and at a staggering height of 7'9" to 7'11". Withered Freddy makes Laker Shaq look like a joke. Now, what position would our boy Withered Freddy play? Well, I actually have two in mind. Either he could be a power forward or a center. His height just allows so much more to happen here. Point forwards can usually do great when it comes to having shooting capability and ball handling. I'm sure his ball handling would be great. Nobody's getting the ball from him, that's for sure. And also, centers tend to be the tallest player on the court, so there's no reason for him to not be there either. And if he's ever center, let's take a moment to pray for any forwards. They're gonna have a rough time. Like, I don't even want to imagine it.
So, to put it simply, Withered Freddy is a beast, and anyone who's playing the sport of basketball should probably look for a different profession, because let's be honest for a second, Withered Freddy will do everything you can do but better in every single way. That applies not only to basketball, but to being a functioning member of society, contributing to his community, paying his taxes, going outside, sleeping with your wife. It really does not matter. He is just better than you. I do want to state real quick that these bears could shoot or dribble a ball. They are capable of making shots and dribbling, as they do show the fluidity required in their movement, which is important for both. If they move too stiffly, they'd have poor accuracy and ball handling, but that's not an issue here, so there's no need to worry. Now that we got that covered though, that would typically be the end. But there's one last thing I need to show you. Come on, we can't talk about bears without talking about Alfonso, so why not see what our guy can do? I've ran down grizzlies before, so I'm gonna skip the useless babble and just give you the pure numbers. His upright height is about 8 feet. Alfonso weighs around 700 pounds, and he can run at about 35 miles per hour on all fours, but I actually have a couple things that I need to go over as well. Here I have some statements from Alfonso's creator, and my good buddy, that says Alfonso with no experience could almost rival LeBron James on the court. I have more statements that agree with the idea that Alfonso can train and improve, which would undoubtedly make him the greatest player in all of the NBA, given the time of course. Now, I don't think we really need to mention what position Alfonso would play, because I think everyone else would be too scared to play against him to begin with. I mean, are you guarding him? Be honest to yourself right now. Are you guarding the grizzly bear? My point exactly. He would just win in any position no matter what. Now, did I just come in with what is essentially a creative character that's 100 overall? Yes. Do I care? No. Alfonso gracing the sport of basketball is quite literally the only way we can stop Withered Freddy from destroying it. After watching, I hope you walk away from this with two things in mind. First, Alfonso is that guy. Secondly, if Withered Freddy got to play the sport of basketball, there would be no discussions involving Michael Jordan or LeBron James, as the true GOAT would be Freddy Fazbear.